Lydia Maxwell stared at the gleaming silver towers of the Galactic Warfare Academy as her transport pod settled onto the landing pad. The structure resembled a massive metallic octopus with tentacle-like corridors reaching in all directions, so different from the blocky concrete buildings of Earth's military academies. First and only human transfer student to the GWA, she muttered to herself, adjusting the environmental suit that kept her comfortable in the Academy's standard atmosphere. No pressure or anything. The Academy admissions officer, a tall insectoid being named Officer Troll, clicked his mandibles nervously as she exited the pod. His forearms clutched a series of tablets and his compound eyes darted around as if expecting her to suddenly attack. "Cadet Maxwell, please follow me. And try not to exert yourself too much. We understand Deathworlders require frequent rest periods." Lyd bit her tongue. 3 months since humanity had been welcomed into the Galactic Alliance, and she was already tired of being treated like some kind of primitive beast. Yes, Earth was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, a planet so environmentally hostile that most galactic species would die within minutes on its surface, but that didn't make humans stupid. "I'll try to keep up," she said with a tight smile. "Though I might need to stop for a raw meat snack or two along the way." Officer Troll's exoskeleton paled slightly as he missed her sarcasm entirely. "We've prepared protein supplements appropriate for your aggressive metabolism." The hallways of the Academy bustled with alien life. Floating gasbag beings from low-gravity worlds drifted alongside serpentine creatures that slithered with surprising speed. Multiple species she couldn't even identify moved about with purpose, all dressed in variations of the silver and blue Academy uniform. And all of them stopped to stare at her. "Is that a human? Look at those dense muscle structures. I heard they can survive radiation that would kill a Threlnak in seconds. Apparently they drink poison for pleasure. They call it alcohol. Their planet has microorganisms that eat them from the inside, and they still survived." Lyd kept her face neutral, though her enhanced hearing picked up every whispered comment. Earth's recent admission to the Galactic Alliance meant most aliens had never seen a human in person, only frightening documentaries about Earth's hellscape environment that made her home planet seem like a nightmare realm of erupting volcanoes and constant predator attacks. Which wasn't entirely wrong, she supposed. Earth did have its challenges. "This will be your dormitory," Troll announced, stopping before a reinforced door. "We've adjusted the gravity to match Earth standard and installed additional structural support for your vigorous movements." "Thanks," Lyd replied, trying not to roll her eyes. "When do classes start?" "Tomorrow morning. Your first session will be Advanced Tactical Warfare with Professor Vexthor." Troll's mandibles clicked rapidly, apparently his species' version of a condescending chuckle. "He's quite interested in studying how Deathworlders approach strategic problems. Our research suggests your kind excels at direct combat but struggles with complex spatial reasoning and long-term planning. Is that so?" Lyd smiled pleasantly, while mentally adding Troll and this Professor Vexthor to her growing list of aliens who needed a serious reality check about humans. After Troll departed, Lyd collapsed onto her reinforced bed and stared at the ceiling. The Academy had accepted her as a cultural exchange initiative, but she knew the real reason. The Alliance military leaders wanted to study humans up close to determine if they were a potential threat or asset. Little did they know that Earth's governments had the exact same motivation for sending her. As the top graduate from the International Defense Academy back home, Lyd had been briefed extensively on her real mission: learn everything about galactic warfare techniques, and determine whether humanity needed to start preparing for something worse than a condescending welcome into the galactic community. "Tomorrow should be interesting," she murmured to herself, closing her eyes and preparing for her first real encounter with alien military education. "Let's see what they think they know about warfare." The lecture hall of the Advanced Tactical Warfare class resembled an amphitheater designed by someone with a serious god complex. Tiered seating surrounded a central platform where a holographic display could project battle scenarios in stunning detail. As Lyd entered, she noticed the room was segregated by species. The gas bags clustered near the ceiling vents, aquatic species in moisture-controlled pods, and various bipeds and quadrupeds arranged by their home world's gravity requirements. Where exactly did a human fit in this biological hierarchy? "You must be the Deathworlder," came a bubbling voice from her right. A translucent jellyfish-like creature hovered nearby, its neural clusters pulsing with friendly blue light. "I'm Krill. Technically I should be with the aquatics, but their section smells like overripe algae." "Lyd Maxwell," she replied, grateful for the friendly face, or whatever passed for a face among floating jellies. "Any tips for surviving this class?" Krill's tentacles rippled in what appeared to be amusement. "Don't make eye contact with Professor Vexthor, don't question his tactical brilliance, and definitely don't mention that his species lost the Battle of Proxima Centauri to a vastly outnumbered force." "Proxima Centauri," Lyd frowned. "That's practically in Earth's backyard." Precisely why it's an awkward topic. Your solar system was considered a strategic non-entity until recently. Now everyone's scrambling to understand how primitive Krill's neural clusters darkened in embarrassment. I mean, how relatively young species develop such effective combat strategies. Their conversation was interrupted by a heavy thud as the classroom door slammed open. A towering gray-skinned alien with 4 muscular arms and a face that looked permanently stuck in disapproval mode strode to the center platform. His silver uniform bore so many medals and insignia that Light wondered how he remained upright. "I am Professor Vexthor," he announced, his voice deep and resonant. "For 8 decades I have trained the Alliance's finest tactical minds. Today we begin with basic planetary invasion strategies. Though for some of you, even these fundamentals may prove challenging." His 6 eyes swiveled deliberately toward Lyde. "Our Deathworlder guest. How fortunate that you've joined us. Perhaps you can provide insight into how your species might defend against a standard orbital bombardment. With sticks and rocks perhaps." Scattered laughter rippled through the room. Lyde maintained a neutral expression, having anticipated this kind of treatment. "We generally start with detecting your approach vectors about 3 light-years out, but I'd be happy to demonstrate with some sticks later if that helps," she replied evenly. Vexthor's face slits narrowed, but he continued without acknowledging her response. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a detailed 3D model of a planet. "This is Teragov Vesim, site of the famous Hexterian conflict. Today we will analyze the invasion strategies employed by Alliance forces that led to victory in merely 47 standard days." For the next hour, Vexthor lectured on what he called sophisticated spatial dynamics but what Light recognized as basic pincer movements and flanking maneuvers that human generals had mastered thousands of years ago. She took notes diligently, occasionally exchanging glances with Krill, whose tentacles would twitch in what seemed like suppressed amusement whenever Vexthor made particularly grandiose claims about revolutionary tactics. "The Hexterian forces foolishly concentrated their defenses here and here," Vexthor continued, highlighting mountainous regions on the planet. "Classic Deathworld thinking, seeking high ground and natural barriers. Such primitive instincts are why developing species struggle with true strategic warfare." Light bit her tongue so hard she nearly drew blood. The primitive tactics Vexthor was dismissing had been the foundation of human military success for millennia. High ground wasn't just instinct, it was mathematically sound strategy that even Earth's AI war simulations still recommended. And now, Vexthor's voice took on a theatrical quality. "I present a challenge that has stumped even veteran commanders. The Battle of Krevelax Prime, a theoretical invasion scenario so complex that no first-year student has ever solved it." The holographic display shifted to show a swirling gas-covered planet with 16 moons of varying sizes, multiple approach vectors, gravitational complications, and defensive installations across all lunar bodies. "The problem has been deemed unsolvable without sacrificing at least 60% of invading forces." Vexthor's face slits curled into what might have been a smile. "Perhaps our Deathworlder would like to demonstrate her species' approach. I understand direct frontal assault is your specialty." All eyes in the room turned toward Lyde. Krill's neural clusters flashed in alarm. "Don't do it," he whispered. "It's a trap. Nobody solves the Krevelax scenario their first try." Lyde studied the rotating planet model carefully. Something about the defensive positions looked oddly familiar. "Actually," she said quietly, "I think I might have some thoughts on this." Professor Vexthor's face slits widened in what passed for a smirk among his species as Lyde stood up. The entire lecture hall fell silent. Even the gaseous beings near the ceiling stopped their constant whooshing. "Excellent," Vexthor rumbled. "A practical demonstration of Deathworlder tactics. Please, Cadet Maxwell, enlighten us with Earth's primitive wisdom." As Lyde made her way down to the central platform, she felt every alien eye, optical sensor, and sensory appendage tracking her movement. The physical differences between her and the other students had never felt more pronounced. Her solid frame, her defined muscles, her confident stride, all products of evolving on a planet that had tried to kill her ancestors at every turn. "Careful," Krill's voice bubbled through her communication implant. "Nobody's ever solved this on their first try. It's designed to be impossible." Vexthor gestured grandly toward the holographic display. "The Krevelax Prime scenario. 16 moons, each with defensive installations. A gaseous upper atmosphere that scrambles targeting systems. Gravity wells that complicate approach vectors." And he added, with particular relish, "defensive fleets positioned to intercept any conventional attack formation." He manipulated the display controls, highlighting the invasion routes that had been attempted by previous strategists. The Horvanian approach results in 78% casualties. The Blixar maneuver, 82%. Even the vaunted triple nexus strategy developed by Grandmaster Zil loses 65% of invasion forces before reaching the planet's surface. Leid studied the floating, glowing representation. The defensive positions, the moons, the approach vectors, something was definitely familiar. In your expert Deathworlder opinion, Vexthor continued, not bothering to hide his condescension. How would Earth's military approach this scenario? Perhaps with your species' famous charge directly at the enemy, and hope for the best strategy. A few nervous laughs scattered through the audience. Actually, Leid said, keeping her voice deliberately calm, this scenario reminds me of something we studied at Earth's International Defense Academy. Oh, Vexthor's tone dripped with mock interest. Do share what primitive Earth strategies might apply to this most complex of galactic warfare scenarios. Leid pointed at the representation. May I manipulate the display? Vexthor stepped aside with a flourish. By all means, though I should warn you, the controls require a sophisticated understanding of spatial mathematics that might be challenging for. Leid's fingers were already dancing across the control panel, adjusting the view, zooming in on particular moons, checking defensive patterns. This is almost identical to the Battle of Jupiter's Moons in 2089, she said, more to herself than to the class. During the corporate resource wars. I beg your pardon. Vexthor's mockery faltered slightly. Jupiter is in your solar system, correct? You've had interplanetary warfare. Nothing as advanced as your galactic conflicts, Leid replied, continuing to manipulate the display. Just humans fighting other humans for control of mineral rights on Jupiter's moons. Similar defensive positioning though. Similar gravitational challenges, the class murmured. Most galactic species assumed humans had barely mastered spaceflight, let alone conducted warfare beyond their atmosphere. And how, pray tell, did your species resolve this conflict? Vexthor's voice had lost some of its theatrical quality. Leid smiled, unconventionally. She zoomed out from the planet model, expanded the view to include the surrounding space, and began making adjustments to the invasion fleet positions. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, rearranging ships into what appeared to be a scattered, disorganized pattern. What is this? Vexthor demanded. You're breaking all standard attack formations. This is tactical nonsense. It's called controlled chaos, Leid replied, still working. You're right that conventional approaches don't work here. So we don't use conventional approaches. She continued adjusting, creating what looked like random clusters of invasion ships positioned at seemingly arbitrary points in space around the planet system. This is absurd, Vexthor sputtered. You've positioned forces where they can't possibly support each other. Some of these ships are practically isolated. They're not isolated, Leid countered. They're positioned to create calculated trajectory intersections when she tapped a sequence on the control panel. You introduce these. Suddenly, hundreds of tiny dots appeared in the display, scattered throughout the space between invasion forces. What are those? Asked a multi-eyed student from the upper tiers. We call them gravity mines, Leid answered. Small, practically undetectable devices that create momentary gravitational distortions when activated in sequence. She pressed another control, and the simulation began to run. The seemingly random invasion forces remained stationary while the defensive fleets began to move, following standard intercept patterns. Then, one by one, the tiny dots began to activate. What happened next drew gasps from the entire lecture hall. The gravitational distortions, precisely calculated and timed, created a cascading effect that threw the defensive fleets into disarray, forcing them into positions where they actually interfered with each other's movements. Meanwhile, the scattered invasion forces, precisely positioned to take advantage of these disruptions, suddenly had clear approach vectors to specific targets. Vexthor stared at the display, his 6 eyes widening in disbelief. This is unorthodox. Sometimes unorthodox is exactly what you need. Leid replied, continuing to manipulate the simulation, especially when your enemy expects you to follow conventional wisdom. The class watched in stunned silence as her unconventional strategy unfolded. The simulation's projected casualty rate, 17%. Vexthor's face had gone from gray to a pale white. This approach has never been considered in any tactical database I've studied. That's because you've been studying galactic tactics, Leid said with a slight shrug. Deathworlders think differently. When every day on your home planet might kill you, You learn to get creative. Vexthor cleared his throat, a sound like gravel being poured through a brass tube. While your approach shows a certain primitive creativity, I must point out several flaws in your thinking. Please do, Lyd said, folding her arms. The simulation continued running behind her, the invasion force successfully penetrating the planetary defenses with minimal losses. These gravity mines you speak of, Vexthor began, regaining some of his professorial condescension. The energy requirements would be astronomical. No known technology could. We use miniaturized fusion cells, Lyd interrupted, deliberately speaking slowly, as if explaining to a child. Very small boom booms, that make very big gravity waves. A ripple of shocked murmurs spread through the class, not just at the technological revelation, but at her tone. Furthermore, Vexthor continued, his voice rising slightly, the precise calculation of gravitational intersections would require computational power beyond. We use special number machines, Lyd said, tapping her temple. They go blinky blink and tell us where to put the floaty boats. Krill's translucent body pulsed with barely suppressed amusement, his neural clusters flashing in patterns that suggested he was trying desperately not to laugh. This is absurd, Vexthor sputtered. You cannot possibly expect us to believe that human technology. The holographic display flickered momentarily, then a pleasant synthetic voice announced analysis complete. Strategy viable with 94.3% confidence rating. Projected casualty reduction of 48.7% compared to previously optimal approach. The lecture hall erupted in chaotic conversation. Students turned to each other, gesticulating with various appendages and sensory organs. Some were accessing data terminals, frantically researching human warfare history. Impossible, Vexthor muttered. But the computer's analysis was displayed for all to see. Not impossible, Lyd corrected him. Just different thinking. You see, Professor, there's something most galactic species don't understand about humans. She touched the control panel again, expanding the view to show the entire simulated battle in motion. The scattered forces, the precisely timed gravity distortions, the defensive fleets thrown into disarray. The reason we survived on a Deathworld isn't just our physical resilience. It's our pattern recognition, our ability to see connections where others see only chaos. She gestured at the swirling complexity of the simulation. This looks random to you. To me it's a dance, each piece moving exactly where it needs to be, exactly when it needs to be there. Vexthor stared at the display, his academic arrogance visibly crumbling. But the tactical databases, thousands of years of galactic warfare strategy, became predictable. Lyd finished for him. Your strategies evolved within a framework where all participants shared similar assumptions. Earth evolved outside that framework. She turned to address the class directly. What you call primitive thinking is actually your blind spot. You expect adversaries to behave according to established doctrines. Humans expect the unexpected, because on Earth the unexpected is what usually tries to kill you before breakfast. The gravity mine deployment sequence, one student called out, a floating gas bag being with sensory tendrils. It's not random at all. It follows a mathematical progression based on harmonic resonance. Exactly, Lyd nodded. Simple once you see it, isn't it? But not simple to conceive of in the first place, Krill added from his seat. That's the brilliance. Vexthor had fallen silent, his 6 eyes fixed on the simulation as it completed its run. The final casualty rate, 16.2%, a new record for the supposedly unsolvable scenario. I think, he finally said, his voice notably subdued, we shall need to reconsider our tactical curriculum to include alternative strategic paradigms. He turned to Lyd, and for the first time there was something approaching respect in his gaze. Perhaps you would be willing to elaborate on these gravity mines in greater detail, Cadet Maxwell, using your actual technical vocabulary, rather than your simplified explanation. Lyd smiled pleasantly. Of course, Professor, but are you sure you're ready for all those big Deathworlder words? The corridor outside the lecture hall buzzed with excitement, as students poured out, their various appendages gesticulating wildly as they discussed what they'd just witnessed. Lyd found herself at the center of an impromptu gathering of curious aliens, each trying to ask questions through their translation devices simultaneously. Is it true humans fought wars on all 7 continents of your planet? Did your species really develop ballistic weapons before achieving reliable food production? Are Deathworlders naturally predisposed to seeing mathematical patterns in chaos? Lyd raised her hands, overwhelmed by the barrage. One at a time, please. And yes, humans have a complicated relationship with both math and murder. A tall, spindly creature with what appeared to be crystalline skin tilted its faceted head. But how did your species advance technologically while constantly fighting each other? The Galactic Historical Archives indicate such behavior typically leads to extinction. That's actually a really good question. Lied admitted. I think it's because we're stubborn. Really stubborn. Persistence predators, came Professor Vexler's voice from behind the crowd. The students parted as he approached, his earlier condescension replaced with a thoughtful expression. Your evolutionary path produced creatures that simply refused to stop, even when logic dictates surrender. Lied wasn't sure if this was meant as a compliment or criticism. We call it determination, but yes. Vexler handed her a datapad. I've reviewed your complete academic file from Earth. Your solution to the Krivalax scenario isn't just unprecedented, it directly contradicts several established principles of tactical theory dating back 12,000 years. Sorry about that, Lied replied with a smile that wasn't sorry at all. Don't be, Vexler said, surprising her. The greatest advances in galactic warfare theory have come from challenging established doctrines. He hesitated, then added something that clearly pained him. I believe I owe you an apology, Cadet Maxwell. The surrounding students fell silent, many of them recording this unprecedented moment. Professor Vexler had never apologized to anyone in his 8 decades of teaching. I made assumptions about your cognitive abilities based on your species classification, he continued. I failed to consider that intelligence manifests differently in different evolutionary contexts. This was an error on my part. Lied resisted the urge to gloat. Apology accepted, Professor. You will assist me in documenting this new tactical approach, he said, not quite making it a request. The applications of controlled chaos in multi-gravitational warfare. We shall co-author a paper for the Academy archives. Before Lyd could respond, a strident alarm echoed through the corridor. Students scattered toward their next classes, leaving Lyd alone with Krill, whose jellyfish-like body bobbed excitedly. Do you have any idea what just happened? Krill bubbled as they made their way to the dining hall. Vexler invited you to co-author. He's never shared academic credit with anyone, let alone a first-year student, let alone a Deathworlder. Lied finished for him. I was going to say newcomer, Krill replied, his neural clusters pulsing warmly. But yes, this is historic. The dining hall was a marvel of xenobiological accommodation, separate sections for methane breathers, silicon-based lifeforms, photosynthesizers, and dozens of other metabolic categories. Lied found her way to the oxygen-dependent omnivore section, which was mercifully compatible with human dietary needs. As she collected her food, a questionable protein cube, with a side of what the meal synthesizer assured her was Earth analog vegetable matter, she noticed something odd. Aliens who had previously given her a wide berth were now watching her with what appeared to be interest rather than fear. You've become something of a celebrity, Krill observed, settling his translucent form at her table. Instead of food, he absorbed nutrient mist from a specialized dispenser. Word travels fast in the academy. I just solved one tactical problem, Lied shrugged, poking at her food cube skeptically. It's not like I cured space cancer. You don't understand. Krill's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. The Krivalax scenario was designed to be unsolvable. It was Vexler's way of teaching humility to overconfident students. Nobody was supposed to actually beat it. Lied paused mid-bite. Wait, seriously, it was rigged. Not rigged, just designed around paradoxical tactical constraints that no standard approach could overcome. Krill's tentacles wiggled in amusement. That's why your solution was so shocking. You didn't just think outside the box, you denied the existence of the box entirely. As if on cue, a group of senior cadets approached their table. Their leader, a reptilian being with iridescent scales and 4 arms, gave Lyd what she assumed was their species' version of a respectful nod. Deathworld, they caught themselves. Cadet Maxwell, I am Senior Cadet Drask Tactical Specialization. My study group requests your participation in our theoretical warfare seminar this evening. Me? Lyd blinked in surprise. Why? Your perspective would be valuable. Drask replied carefully. We are examining historical conflicts where unconventional approaches prevailed against superior forces. That's pretty much all of human warfare history, Lied said with a laugh. Precisely why we seek your input, Drask confirmed, seemingly missing the humor. The seminar begins at 8th bell. Your presence would be honored. After they departed, Krill's body pulsed with what Lied had learned was his version of laughter. And so it begins. What begins? The re-evaluation of humanity's place in the galactic hierarchy. Krill replied, I've studied your species in secret for some time now. Your Earth history fascinates me, especially your military conflicts. You've been studying humans. Lyd raised an eyebrow. Why? Krill's neural clusters pulsed in a pattern Lyd hadn't seen before, something between embarrassment and excitement. Because I recognized something the Alliance refuses to acknowledge. Deathworlders don't just survive through physical adaptation. You survive through innovative thinking, through seeing patterns others miss. He extended a tentacle toward the crowded dining hall. Look around you. Every species here evolved in environments where survival was reasonably predictable. Follow the established rules, avoid known dangers, and you'll likely survive. But Earth, Lyd began, understanding dawning. Earth tries to kill you in new and creative ways all the time, Krill finished. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, and let's not forget your own species' remarkable talent for creating new methods of self-destruction. Thanks, I think. It's a compliment of the highest order, Krill assured her. Your people don't just survive, you transform survival into an art form. And today, you showed the Academy a glimpse of what that means. Lyd looked around the dining hall with new eyes. The aliens watching her weren't simply curious anymore. There was something else in their gazes. Was it respect? Or perhaps the first stirrings of something the Galactic Alliance hadn't anticipated when they reluctantly admitted Earth to their community? Recognition that humans might not just be physically dangerous Deathworlders, but intellectually formidable ones as well. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Warfare Academy's prestigious central atrium had been transformed for the annual Strategic Innovation Showcase. Holographic displays hovered throughout the vast space, each demonstrating breakthrough tactical concepts developed by the Academy's most promising minds. Faculty members drifted from display to display, evaluating projects with critical eyes while corporate and military representatives from across the Alliance scouted for recruits. At the center of it all stood Lyd Maxwell, surrounded by an eager crowd of cadets, professors, and even a few admirals with so many decorations they practically jingled when they moved. The key innovation isn't the gravity mines themselves, she explained, manipulating the holographic representation of her now famous Krivillax solution. It's the mathematical model that predicts how complex gravitational interactions cascade through a multi-body system. An admiral with skin like polished obsidian leaned forward. And you're saying humans developed this during a corporate war within your own solar system? The Jupiter resource conflict of 2089, Lyd confirmed. When 3 mega-corporations fought over mining rights to the outer moons. Classic human behavior, we hadn't even established colonies beyond Mars and we were already fighting over rocks we couldn't even reach yet. This drew appreciative laughter from the gathered aliens, a marked change from the fearful or condescending reactions she'd faced upon arrival. In just 3 weeks her status had transformed from curiosity to phenomenon. Students sought her out for study groups, professors invited her to guest lecture, and the Academy Board had approved 3 new courses on non-standard strategic paradigms based on her input. As the crowd dispersed, Professor Vexter approached, accompanied by a distinguished delegation in formal Alliance military attire. Cadet Maxwell, Vexter said, his tone respectful. These representatives from Alliance High Command wish to discuss the applications of your tactical innovations. The lead officer, a towering being with iridescent plumage, performed a formal bow. The Strategic Development Division is particularly interested in your species' approach to asymmetric warfare. We understand humans have extensive historical experience in this area. You could say that, Lyd replied with a diplomatic smile. Though we prefer to call it fighting above our weight class. Across the atrium, she spotted Krill hovering anxiously near her dormitory wing's exit. He'd been acting strangely all day, his neural clusters flickering in patterns she now recognized as nervous excitement. If you'll excuse me, she said to the delegation, I have a prior commitment with a fellow cadet. As she made her way across the atrium, she couldn't help noticing how different the Academy felt now. Where once she'd been met with stares of fear or curiosity, now she received respectful nods and even a few awkward attempts at human-style salutes. There you are, Krill bubbled as she approached. Quick, we need to talk somewhere private. He led her down a series of corridors to a small observation deck overlooking the Academy's ship bay. The massive space housed training vessels of various designs, from nimble atmospheric skimmers to hulking capital ship simulators. What's with all the secrecy? Lyd asked, leaning against the viewport. You've been acting weird all day. Krill's translucent body pulsed with rapid color changes. I've been monitoring Alliance command transmissions. You've been what? Lyd straightened. That's about 17 different Academy violations. 23 actually. Krill replied without remorse. But what I found was worth the risk. The Alliance is preparing a formal invitation to Earth's governments to join the Advanced Defense Council. Lyd's eyes widened. That's unexpected. Earth was barely allowed into the General Assembly 3 months ago. The Defense Council is for senior member worlds. Your tactical innovations changed everything. Krill explained. The Alliance military establishment is concerned. About what? One human cadet solving a classroom exercise. About what it represents. Krill's neural clusters formed a serious pattern. Think about it, Lid. If one human with basic military training can break through tactical challenges that have stumped the best galactic minds for generations, what might Earth's actual military leaders achieve? Lid considered this, a slow smile spreading across her face. So they're inviting Earth to join the Defense Council because, keep your friends close, keep potentially terrifying Deathworlders with unpredictable strategic thinking closer. Krill finished. Classic Alliance politics. They stood in silence for a moment, watching as a training ship performed precision maneuvers in the bay below. There's something else you should know. Krill said finally. I did some deeper research into your academic records from Earth. Lid stiffened. And, you weren't the top graduate from your International Defense Academy, were you? Krill's voice was gentle, not accusatory. According to the records I found, you ranked 43rd in your class. A burst of laughter escaped Lid's lips, startling a passing maintenance drone. 47th, actually. Your intel is slightly off. But the Academy was told you were the best Earth had to offer. Krill's body rippled in confusion. And that's the part no one here understands about humans yet. Lid said, still chuckling. We're sneaky. Earth's governments didn't send their top military mind, they sent someone good enough to make an impression, but not their best. Krill floated silently for a moment, processing this revelation. That's remarkably devious. We've had a lot of practice. Lid shrugged. Look, the average galactic citizen thinks Earth is just a primitive death world where creatures like me develop thick muscles and durable bones but limited brains. Alliance intelligence probably figured they'd evaluate me, confirm their biases about human cognitive limitations, and file the report away. Instead, a mid-ranked human cadet revolutionized tactical theory and scared the Alliance military into offering Earth a Defense Council seat. Krill's neural patterns flickered in what Lid had learned was amusement. So if you're only average by human standards, I never said I was average. Lid corrected with mock offense. 47th out of 5,000 isn't bad. But no. I'm not our best strategist. Who is? Krill asked. Lid smiled cryptically. That would be telling. As they returned to the atrium, Lid spotted Professor Vexthor deep in conversation with the Alliance High Command delegation. The formerly condescending instructor was animatedly explaining her tactical innovations, occasionally glancing in her direction with something approaching genuine respect. You know what the funniest part is? Lid said quietly to Krill. The gravity mine technique isn't even cutting edge by Earth standards. It's a 50-year-old approach that's been refined into something much more sophisticated now. You're joking. Krill's body paled momentarily. Earth's unified defense force keeps the really good stuff classified. Lid replied. What I demonstrated here is practically public domain knowledge back home. So when the Alliance finally invites human military representatives to share strategic knowledge, Krill began. They're going to get quite the education. Lid finished with a grin. But hey, that's the whole point of cultural exchange, right? Learning from each other. As they watched the gathering of galactic military elite, now buzzing with excitement over human tactical innovation, Lid couldn't help but think of her actual mission briefing before leaving Earth. Cadet Maxwell, your job isn't to impress them. It's to make them underestimate us, but just enough that they invite us deeper into their confidence. The galaxy doesn't need to know everything humans are capable of. Not yet. Mission accomplished, she thought. As an Academy official approached to inform her that the Commandant wished to discuss establishing an Earth Strategic Studies Department with her as special advisor, Krill nudged her gently with a tentacle. You're smiling that scary Deathworlder smile again. Am I? Lid replied innocently. Just thinking about how educational the next few years are going to be, for everyone. Around them, the Galactic Warfare Academy continued its transformation, adapting to the reality that perhaps the most dangerous thing about Deathworlders wasn't their physical resilience after all, but the minds that had evolved to thrive in a world that had never stopped trying to kill them. Somewhere on Earth, Lid knew, the actual top graduates of the International Defense Academy were preparing for their own journeys to the stars, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming.